Thanks for joining today. And this is part 2 of our Emergency Preparedness Plan 2023. So if you are looking for part 1, it's on fire safety and making sure that you have all your parts for your fire book. As I'm out and about in the community, I continue to find people that have a complete book or a complete thing to show the fire marshal when they come to the house, and now they're writing tags. And actually just recently am dealing with the fire marshal that has made all the residents be evacuated until the fire policies and the fire program was solid back in place. So today I'm going to go on part 2 of our emergency preparedness plan, which is a full evacuation. And we're going to talk through this piece of it. And then in a week or two, probably a couple of weeks, I'll do a catch up on infection control, which is another emergency and part of your EMP. And then we'll also sometime before the end of March be doing something on active shooter. There's a lot of training going around in police departments, schools, public health, all that. So I'm looking at everything, trying to figure out what would work in our communities. So evacuation, when you're looking at it and thinking about it, it is something that you never want to have to do, but when you have to do it, you've got to have a practice and have a really good plan and be able to execute it rapidly. So it's very important that you take some time now in February and March and put together part 2 of your emergency preparedness plan using this slide deck as guide to what you would do for a full evacuation. So here are some of the things that will create a full evacuation: a gas leak, broken water pipes, lost electricity or your HVAC system, or a combination of your HVAC and your water if you have a boiler. Any natural disaster, God knows we've been having those left and right. And then any structural damage, such as wind, or this big snowstorm that we had that disleveled some foundation work, those types of things. So you need to plan, you need to understand your physical plant, and then start thinking about being ready. One of the things that you will want to have is either you want a weather radio, which is battery operated, or you put the emergency app on your telephone. If you go to colorado.gov/emergency, Colorado has 2 apps, and I have both of them on my phone right now. One is an alert, and the other one is actually an activation. And if you have to evacuate, and it goes to your zip code area, you will hear on the news that the department, Colorado, is practicing, especially in the middle of the state, trying to make sure that this system's going to work. And they tried within the last 10 days, and they had some problems with it. So this will be an ongoing process, and they will continue to practice drill until they get this thing so it's reliable. All right, so where does all this stuff come from? Well, this comes from the State Office of Emergency Planning. So we have divisions. We have 2. We have an operational, which is, like if you're driving down the highway, you'll see that amber alert, or you see the emergency alerts, or your phone, or your TV, radio, computer systems. Xfinity will be putting emergency alerts across if it's activated. And then you'll have public safety communications. So again, amber alerts is a piece of that. Or you might have an active shooter, protocols, shelter in place, those types of things. So the more differential our society becomes, the more we're going to have to get at least 2 or 3 feet ahead of it, right? So you're going to plan your supporting, and you need to know who your agencies are and have them in your contact list so that you can get a hold of them when things go sour. So these are a couple examples of what the alerts are looking like. So the emergency alert system on the right, this frequently will come on your cell phone. And the one on the left is more what you might see on TV, or again, if you are in a particular app that is hooked up with a major carrier, you may get a public safety alert. And this one is specifically was made during the early part of COVID, when we were having major outbreaks and they were coming at us left and right. All right, so the counties all have either their own website or collective website. So a lot of the small counties are working together. But I wanted to share some of the things that I found when I started going through counties, because I thought there was some really good information, and they had a little different approach, each one of them. So this one comes from Well County, and this video is quite good. I hope you'll take time to go and find it and look at it. Also, this is how the phone numbers are set up pretty much in all of the counties, and then what their physical office is, and then who is the lead project manager for that county. So the Office of Emergency Management is known as the OEM. Another acumen to add to our industry. So I like this one because, again, they have really taken time, and I believe the students there at the university helped with this, to put a very user-friendly website together. Denver has been concentrating on a program called Denver Ready. They have been tackling this at multiple angles. One of them for the density housing, all the high rises downtown, that type of thing. Another one with families and school kids. Another area with local libraries, and then trying to kind of get ready, because Denver has unique things that they have to deal with. And so again, this website is really nice because it's been doing the reframing work. So the name of the program for Denver is called Denver Ready. Alamosa, on the other hand, is a little more conservative, and they have went to a toolkit, which is my favorite way of handling things, but they took their information from ready.gov. And so they have quite a few things that are national standards. It'll be very interesting to see how the information feedback from the tornadoes and the bad weather and the hurricane and the snow situations all on the East Coast, how this changes this particular website for the future. Okay. Grand Junction, and that is Mesa County. They have multiple counties that they are supporting, and they've done what they call the ESF8. And so you can go look at their website. One of the strengths that I think Mesa brings to the table is that they have very thoughtfully and very proactively went out and made partnerships for neighborhoods and areas, especially some of their little more what I call rural frontier slash areas that don't have fast access, or they may have landscape issues such as the mesas to deal with on top of everything else. So again, looking at these different counties is a really interesting way to kind of start thinking through your own program. It is important that every resident has an emergency notebook. If your residents are ambulatory, participatory, and responsible people, I like the notebooks to be in their rooms and where they learn to bring their notebooks with them. It's all about them. They should know about it anyway. In our dementia, early dementia and up to late dementia, we are building kind of like a tote with their emergency folders in them. This purpose has several things. One, it's about the resident. Two is if we have to split up for any reason, then the emergency notebook has the core information that will get people through at least 72 hours. So it has a face sheet with the emergency contact. It has a master med list and advanced directives if there are any in place, a service plan so that whoever is helping has an idea of what's going on in these folks' life, and then fall risk and fire risk assessments. And so these are important pieces of your work this year and things that you should have in place already. There's multiple tools for fall risk assessment, and there is a wonderful tool for the state for fire risk assessment that is required by all the fire districts. They are going around and visiting all of the assisted livings in their zip code responsibilities. And the first thing they're asking for is your fire book and your fire risk assessments, and then your summary page. The other thing that you need to get done, and quickly before the end of March, is you need a go bag. Those bags with the pull strings are just fine. I've done quite a few across the state, and that will work well. And then what we've been doing is shopping at Goodwill and ARC for 3 changes of clothes that we could get through, and to get through the first 72 hours, because there's not time to pack. It's literally pick up and go. You need a hygiene kit in there with essential hygiene. A small first aid kit would be good to have. And basically I keep in there is wound washing, some Band-Aids, some small ones and medium ones, and a roll of an ACE wrap type roll. So a small first aid kit. Socks and slipper socks to help keep people's feet warm, and then something for them to do. And so we've been doing some small puzzles, some little books, some fidget items, different things in different communities, trying to put something together to keep them occupied for at least 45 minutes to an hour while you get reorganized. So you say, well, why do you need changes of clothes? Well, remember, you're responsible for them for 72 hours. You may not drop them at any shelter or the hospital or any school or library without their permission. And so the hospitals really have gotten upset when this has happened. They are not your babysitters. You are supposed to have a memorandum of understanding of where you're going to go. And that was really hard during COVID because all the hotels were full of people that were unhoused. And so that has not changed a whole heck of a lot. And then whether you have sister facilities that can help you, or you have other facilities that you have a relationship with that can help you, you need to know what you're going to do. So you're responsible to make sure they're fed, that they're hydrated, they have medical care, and they have the go bag and your emergency stuff. And then you're also responsible for their medications. I can't emphasize enough about communication. There's a lot of ways to tackle this. And one of them is to think about using the cloud, like Dropbox, that's HIPAA compliant, and putting things in there. Also, your emergency phone needs to be updated monthly to make sure that all the contacts for the residents, all their emergency contacts are in the phone. And then I would add things like 911, 988, just use 988 today at a facility. Email addresses for those that want, or text messaging, so that you can actually function. And then a lot of family education, how you're going to communicate, what's the next steps, how can they help, how can they let you know if they can help. So down again in the southern part of the country, roads were washed out, you couldn't get there. And same thing in California, that when they had those heavy rains, roads were washed out totally, and then a lot of trees fell, and so you couldn't get from point A to point B. And this is why it's really important to know your neighborhood, know what think through your plan, and then understand your support systems within your staff and with your families. So training is not just a one-time thing. So you need to talk to your staff, and you should be having a whole big discussion on emergency preparedness and hear from them things that they think that would be very helpful. You want to talk about it with your residents. You want to talk about it in admission. You want to talk about building their go bags and their notebooks. I have residents all over the state that are helping to decorate their emergency books to get some buy-in, and they'll recognize their book because there'll be their art on the front page, on the front. And then share with families. One of the problems I had is some families took all the emergency books in one facility, and we had to call them and ask them to bring them all back. So they're welcome to have a copy, but they can't take the books. So practicing is going to be very important. All right, so the other thing, you need to catch up your policies. So as I was looking around at some best practices around the country, I found this one. It's called Safety Culture, and it was how to write an emergency evacuation plan. Please use this tool and see if it would be of help. You have the slide decks. And you're welcome to these. These are for our audience. And then this plan should help you put something together that makes sense. Okay. So what's it include? Well, who's responsible, and what's their role and what's their responsibility? Okay. What's the local emergency services, and who is the authorities, and how is that going to work? Okay. What's the emergency alert system, the EAS? Okay. And what does that look like? Okay. How are we going to communicate? what is the procedures in different areas? If you have a big community, what are the procedures? Okay. What are the exit routes? How are you going to get people out? And what's an alternative if that particular exit is not accessible? Okay. And where's the safe zone? Where do you want to collect people? We've had some emergency situations and practice drills, and some of the residents just left. We had one small town, the residents left and went to town. And then they were scattering and driving all over to go find their residents because they just walked down to town and decided that that would be okay. So you, again, practice, good communication, good expectations, and then a census count. Okay. So some other things I want you to think about. You need a good duffel bag. Army, Navy stores are a good place to get a very solid duffel bag that can carry the weight, because you've got to bring things with you, and you need a first aid kit. You need your medication, how you're going to get your medications out of the house, whether you're going to put it in a duffel bag or whether you're going to try to take your cart. You're going to figure that out. Some additional hygiene supplies. Don't forget your disinfectant and your disinfectant soap, and then some wipes, some disinfectant wipes. You need some food to get started with, because people are, with anxiety, are going to want something. And then you have to start thinking about temporary housing and transportation. Those two are the hardest at this point. So some more things to think about is money. You are going to need to be able to access credit cards or cash flow to actually be able to take care of the residents. So don't forget about that, that you will need some additional money, and how much it may cost. Okay. All right. So for today, that's the information I wanted to share. If you want to call me or here at the office, 855-293-6911, or email me at Patricia, PLCRN, @comcast.net. Feel free to do that, and I'll talk it out with you and help you figure it out. And then the other part of it is, again, in probably about 2 weeks, Lena will help me, and we will do an update on infection control for your emergency preparedness plan. And then last but not least, we will do an active shooter discussion, so that you can think about that and where it would be safe to go in your house. How would you notify you need help to the police? How do you keep your residents calm and safe? All of those things. Unfortunately, active shooters is a piece of our lives these days. So if you have any other additional questions or needs, please feel free to reach out, and thanks for attending this recorded presentation.